Can you hear me? Oh, yeah, perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Tatiana Vilela dos Santos. It will be written on the next slide, so no worries. And before we dive into the world of playful installations, I also want to extend my thanks to the fantastic team behind the KIKK Festival for providing this platform where ideas and weird ideas can flourish. So yeah, let's embark on this journey together, exploring the enchanting world of playful installations. Are you ready? Fantastic. Let's get started. Oh yeah, I can use this magic remote I've been given. I think so. Yeah. Yeah, magic, crafting magic, this is what it is about. Thank you, I can press a button, yeah. Okay. So, my name is Tatiana Vilela dos Santos. I'm a game designer and artist based in Paris. For the past 13 years, I've been working as a game designer, at first for big companies, and my specialty is new technologies. I design video games for new technologies. I worked with virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, all type of realities, really. But also humanoid robots, video mapping. And my journey in this field started in 2010, and back then, I just had my first job as a game designer. And I was working on Unreal Engine 3, and I was working on what was brand new back then, the iPad. And tablets were a new platform, so I didn't have any references to base my design upon, obviously. So I had to explore what were the possibilities of this new technology, and I enjoyed it so much that I decided to make a living out of game design for new technologies. So keep in mind that it was like 13 years ago. And as a rookie game designer, it was quite tough to make this game. I'm a bit short, sorry. It was tough as a rookie game designer because I was trying at first to, oh yeah, sorry, I have a slide for that. I was trying at first to make the traditional game genres fit into the iPad. And this was a bad idea because my design was basically taking something that was cool and putting constraints over it that were not made for this experience. And so this was my first lesson as a rookie game designer. Look for the new possibilities. Don't look for how to bend yourself backward to fit the constraints. And this is when I started making cool stuff with iPads, shaking it, playing with expectations that were not based on video game, but were on conventional activities like shaking champagne, for example, and stuff like this. It's a small anecdote just to say that I learned a lot of lessons making playful installations for the past decade and more. And the point for me today is to save you some time in sharing those lessons. Hopefully you won't make the same mistakes. And if you do, well, at least you'll know that you're not the only one. And I'm also here making the same mistake as you do. To finish quickly about my journey, so I worked with a lot of different new technologies, and at some point, I started making full custom installations. Just to give you a quick example of what I was doing back then when I was still doing corporate playful installations, because that's a thing. So let me show you quickly what it looks like. There are some sound, but I can speak over it.
This October, Singapore hosted the BNP Paribas WTA finals for the first time. The 8 top WTA tennis players from around the world
making video games for
Singapore Sports
a bank.
For this special occasion, the innovative bank wanted to offer something different to its VIP clients. Not just a way to connect with each other, but an immersive digital experience that would highlight its long-term commitment to tennis through the We Are Tennis by BNP Paribas brand. we created a new way to play tennis. A digital tennis game with futuristic gameplay using leap motion technology.
Again, back then, I was still really...
Guests were invited to register when they joined BNP Paribas Hospitality Suite, sharing their LinkedIn details.
And so, as you can see, it's really
then
rooted
they were challenged
in
by a
traditional
fellow
arcade
VIP to a virtual
game.
tea break match in 7 points.
It's a mix
just
between
like a tennis
flipper
tie-break.
and pong or
They didn't
something
need to
like
bring a
this.
racket.
So this
Players
is the
could
kind
use
of
their
stuff I
hands
was
to
doing
exchange tennis shots.
in 10 years ago
Using leap
for
motion
big
technology.
companies. And it was nice, it was fun. But 2 years after I started in the industry in 2012, I had an existential crisis that a lot of people will be able to relate to here about what about my games? What about my creations? I wanted to do stuff that were my own. And so I started doing it in 2012 on the side. And I submitted it to some festivals to be exhibited, places like the KIKK Festival, and I got accepted. And now I'm traveling around the world to showcase my work and sometimes give conference like this one. All these works I'm doing on the side are under the title MechBird. MechBird is the name of my multimedia project. I'm doing a lot of collaborations on it. One with Olivier, that's in the backstage. You can say hi to the guy in the backstage. The technical guy is in the backstage again. What a surprise. And so I'm doing a lot of very experimental games. In the form of interactive installations. You can see some of those on the screen right now, so it's a bit cryptic, obviously, but you can find this video online if you like. As I was saying, I did 1,000 mistakes while doing that, but I also learned big lessons, like how to design interactive installations. I'm spitting because I'm late, and it shows. Oh my God. So I was saying that I was about to share lessons on how to make playful installations and especially play with what are the strong points of playful installations: engagement, immersion, and of course, driving the curiosity of your player. So just to provide you an overview of the key questions I'll try to address in the next 30 minutes. I divided the time I have with you today in 6 sections. It was really hard to find the structure, but that's the one I chose. I will first tell you a bit more about playful installations. What do I mean by playful installations and what difference I make with interactive installations and video games? And then focus on play design, which is for me the equivalent of game design when you free yourself from the idea of achieving a goal and stuff like this. You can design play beyond game and goals and objective, etc. It will be clearer when I'll enter the part, hopefully. And then I'll try to show you how I do gameplay loops. I'll explain what it is, but basically a loop of activities inside a game to playful installations. And then the 3 points after that will be about what is the specificities of tangible installations and video games when you have to play between the tangible and digital space. One before last will be about storytelling. How can we do video game storytelling using scenography to convey the stories in our playful installations? And finally, my favorite part, how to cultivate interactive showmanship. Playful installation is a lot about the show that players will put for visitors to look at and how to design with that in mind. So, the art of play, what a pompous name. I didn't have any better idea. Oh yeah, I forgot my magic remote. So, the idea for me, talking about playful installations, what's the point? Why don't we say interactive installations, for example? And for me, it's not the same thing in the sense that playful installations are interactive installations with jazz. In playful arts, we will have different purpose that can, playful art, sorry, can serve different purposes. And in those that are specific to playful arts and playful installations, you will have the way we can engage players and encourage interactions in the artwork and foster creativity in the players. And yeah, that's cool. These are stuff of for interactive installations, right? You can do that with interactive installations. But there is 1 point or 2 points really that are really specific to playful arts. These are exploration and emotional connection. We have ways to make people experiment inside the installations that will make them, let's say, embrace their inner child that I would like to share with you. Just quickly, what's the point of that? The point can be, there are different points, different purposes, depending on what is your sensitivity as an artist. But I put a list here of the type of meanings that can be conveyed with the interactions we can design for playful installations. The main difference between classic interactive immersive installations and playfulness, playful installations, will be the difference between what I would call a sense of wonder and playfulness. In immersive art, usually we will play on your, try to instigate a sense of wonder. You will try to have people say, I can't believe my eyes. This is a sort of passive trance, passive ecstasy. Playfulness is more active. It's more the mindset of a child trying to put his fingers inside an outlet. Will it hurt? What will happen? This what will happen mindset is characterizing playfulness. So this is the first way I can approach this. It will make a big difference here because the first way I started making game installations was by applying playful archetypes. A game archetype is a pattern that will repeat in different games that has characteristics that are precise enough so we can give a definition of it. So, for example, I don't know, like sports or game archetype. But the first one I started exploring was the Twister. So you may know the game Twister, the party game. You know what? I won't tell you anything, and I will show you one of my first game installations and see the Twister inside of it. And I'll tell you more about it after that. Players are wearing 5 buttons each. It's a cooperative game. So it's an electronic twister played cooperatively on the body of your partner. And I was telling you about game archetypes because obviously Twister is the game that inspired me this game, but it's not the same, right? So that's a good way to start thinking about interactive installations in a playful way. What kind of playful archetypes could fit here would be relevant, but also, and more importantly, what kind of core values will these game mechanics convey? Because the moment you have a sense of progression in a game experience or a playful experience, well, first, the difference between game and other type of experiences, of course, will be the sense of progression. The idea that you can do stuff that are good, that will help you to move forward in the story or win, and actions that are bad that will prevent you from winning. And this means that as an art form, games are especially reinforcing dominant ideology, because in games you will always have some interactions that are valued as good or bad. It's really hard to have abstraction in a game. Some actions will help you progress, so it's good. Let's say in a game like Tetris. In Tetris, emptiness is good and full is bad. In this sense, we could say that Tetris is kind of conveying a sort of minimalist ideology. And so a game will always convey values. So taking archetypes and wondering what kind of values are conveyed and which one are interesting or not and why, and then trying to implement them in an interactive experience to turn it into a playful installation is one way to go with it. Another quick example of an archetype applied in one of our installations is a football with pied bébé. It's lagging a little, sorry. So this is a surreal reinterpretation of football, with the main theme being collage, and collage also with toys. So the toys are reacting depending on what you do in the video game. If you call it T-Rex to eat your opponent's players, it will actually release smokes from its mouth. Also, if you mark a goal, the baby's head will turn, etc. So it was all about collage. Just another way, just to show you that when I say serious stuff like game archetypes and what message they convey, it can also be silly, funny stuff too. Doesn't have to be like harsh philosophical stuff, but it can too. Second part, I'm only 2 minutes late, oh, nice, is what I call play design. So the idea for me is to switch from game design to play design, and this is really hard. So first, let's start by putting 2 words, defining 2 words that I will need to use a lot: toy and games, and then play. So a toy is purposeless, like this is my new toy for today. If I wasn't so afraid to mess my presentation, I would start playing with it. Maybe later, but I think I have a laser. Yeah. Anyway, so this is my new toy. It has a laser. And a game has rules or structures and an idea of an ending. Doesn't need to be a proper victory or defeat condition, but at least a story, like you can progress in it and maybe lose in that sense. For those of you who saw Bender Snatch from Black Mirror, for me, that's a game for this reason. Anyway, that was a digression. And then we have play. So what will be the difference? Well, play is the activity that you do both with a toy and a game, and also a musical instrument. So it's more about the activity than the object. And for that reason, it's hard to seize. It's a hard notion to grasp. But we have one way to deal with this, coming from game design tools and HCI methods that I call the HCI circuit modification. So basically, most games, well, all games are based on a game apparatus that usually for a game designer is a given. What I mean by that is that if you have a player in his living room, in their living room, and they're playing a video game, you can already assume they will have a gamepad and looking at a screen. You don't know the size of the screen, the exact model of the gamepad, but you kind of know what the game apparatus will be, really. And with playful installations, we can redefine the game apparatus as a game designer. We can design like dedicated controllers, basically. So dedicated controllers are controllers made only for one activity, like the guitar from Guitar Hero is a dedicated controller. So usually in the HCI circuit, you will have 2 type of interfaces, those that will send input and those that will send outputs. And I put here the most common one. So obviously gamepad, keyboard, mice, also MIDI keyboards, MIDI instruments, webcams, and microphones are the most common controllers that we have, that we find. And then for outputs, we will have mainly stuff based on sound, vibration, and display, visual displays. But we can change this loop, and whoa. I should only work with this remote from now on. So we can change this to start having fun in our creative process. So let's say your input is now a toaster or a saxophone. What type of game will you do with a vacuum cleaner? And yeah, that's one way to unlock creativity. I love this exercise with my students. I'm doing that often. But what is really interesting with that loop is how it highlights the difference between traditional game design and playful installation design. And this is where artists come, I think, with an advantage in the game at this point. Anyway, the main difference is that in traditional game design, we will think about physical interfaces with ergonomics in mind. The idea is that the gamepad, the keyboard, must be forgotten by the player to the benefit of digital immersion, which makes sense. We don't want the gamepad to be so annoying to use that players will constantly have to look at it, except if you are making a playful installation and then your interface is not made for ergonomics, but for challenge purposes, to provide a challenge to the player. So the silliest example I can give you is a game I made alone in a day just to have fun, and it happened to be exhibited. So that happens, apparently. And that's a perfect illustration of this concept. So here you have Good Soup, which is a game played with a gamepad and a pair of chopsticks. And it's just annoying to play because of the chopsticks. However, as the game is all about this challenge, obviously the point is to play that way. In other words, if you play without the chopsticks, it's a shitty game, let's be honest. It's really made for that. So when you start thinking with challenges in mind instead of ergonomics, you can start having fun with this loop in playful installations. I just added something that I think is obvious, but just in case. When it comes to output, the exercise I love the most when it comes to creative process is trying to design for other senses, because now we can do that easily. So yeah, it was just to give you an example of that. And finally, in this loop, you can see other stuff happening. Agents. In the loop, we call that agents. And one of the agents is the human. And we can also use that to our advantage, meaning that we can modify this loop to make playful installations. Quick example, again, a game made very quickly. It's just a game, but it's to show you what can be done by modifying this loop, because that's the exact method I used to make this game. So I knew that I had to make a game that should be playable on keyboard. And I knew that I couldn't make, for different reasons. It was a partnership with a television channel called Arte anyway. So I had to make something on keyboard. And I couldn't craft an interface, which is a big frustration for me. So how can you do that using the loop? You change the way the loop is balanced. Here in this game, you have 3 players playing with the same keyboard and the same avatar. The little snail on the screen. And because they are sharing the same avatar, they will fight over the keyboard. One player is green, one is blue, one is red. Every node of the graph that is nearest to the snail will display a random letter. If you press it, the snail will go on it. And so, of course, the point of player red is to bring the snail to a red end, green end for green players, etc. So this is what can happen when you just modify the loop, even from a user perspective. That's a way for game designers to think about the game apparatus outside the screen frame, outside the screen frame, beyond the joysticks, beyond gamepads, etc. Third part, the gameplay loops. So a gameplay loop is a sequence of actions in a game that will repeat and that is necessary for motivation to engage players. We need a gameplay loop to make sure that the player always has a challenge to face that is motivating him or her to overcome, to fight, let's say to fight. A gameplay loop is comprised of 3 poles: challenge, goal, reward. It's a hard word to say. Goal, challenge, reward. And the game will always be about this loop. Like, we will repeat this loop over and over again. We can intricate some loops in others. In a game like Tetris, we will have one small loop like this. In a game like, I don't know, an MMORPG, we will have thousands of them intricated, nested inside one another. And the point of this loop when it comes to playful installations is how can I have this loop without turning into a video game? Because what I just said about the HCI circuit is really more aimed towards game designers that are trying to do playful installations. But what I'm saying now is more like the opposite. If I was talking to an interactive artist trying to make a playful installation, I would ask this person, what is the gameplay loop of your installation? But it doesn't have to be about winning or losing. A toy also has a gameplay loop. For example, if there is a cat and I'm playing with the laser, and the cat is not reacting, I'm losing my own game, I'm just improvising, right? So where is the gameplay loop in the installation? And then you can come back to the archetype and actually use them to see to analyze what was the gameplay loop of your game archetype and apply it in your own playful installation. One example I can give you of that. Oh, it's the music of the, I thought someone was calling me. So this game was inspired by judo, and it's a competitive game for 2 players. And the gameplay loop is quite obvious here. Every time the system highlights a button, players have to press it to eat part of their snake, of their opponent's snake. And then when they did so, the system will highlight another button, and again, up until the moment one player has 3 points in advance. So you have to win by 3 points in this game. And analyzing the newaza, the phase in judo that's on the floor, and what was fun about it, helped me analyze 2 stuff. First one was how to simplify, essentialize my practice of judo into, essentialize it into a simple, playful experience by removing all the complicated rules and protocols, etc. Where was the joy of it for me? I'm not a professional judoka. I'm not doing judo I'm not doing the Olympics. Where was the pleasure for me? And analyzing that helped me essentialize this pleasure and turn it into a game. But I'll come back to this later. It also helped me with trying to instigate a state of flow that you may have heard of. It's a psychological state defined by a psychologist called Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi that defines the optimal point of enjoyment. I'm going quickly over that because I'm late. That's my specialty, being late. But by making efficient gameplay loop, you can make sure that you are maintaining your player in a state of flow just by increasing the difficulty inside the gameplay loop. And this is what I did with this game, Oort. Game space shifts. Yeah, obviously, something that is specific to interactive installations is the porosity between digital and physical space. So our players won't be, our visitors won't be confined to the frame of the screen. We can think about augmented reality, for example, but in playful experiences, it means something special, because a game is always a space defined psychologically. The psychological space of the game is the magic circle. It's the place inside which the game exists. So let's say this is a soldier, and my hand is another soldier, and they are fighting, pew, 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 and obviously they are fighting inside the magic circle. They are not actually fighting. I'm just a speaker doing weird stuff on stage. And this is the magic circle, and this can be redefined in playful installations to make new gameplay offers to the players by using a tool that I'm going to explain very quickly. That's the terminology of user interface. The question is, inside a playful installations, there are really only 4 types of elements. Stuff that are living in the fiction of the game and in the space of the game. Stuff that are not existing in the fiction of the game, like the health bar of a character in a fighting game is not existing for the character, right? It's only existing for the player. And stuff that are represented for us in another way, like when a character looks at a cell phone, a mobile phone, and then a player on screen will have another vision of it. That's a meta representation, another way of representing something that exists, so players can see it. And that's one way to think about the scenography, to make sure that the players, I'm going a bit quickly over the games I took as examples, I'm sorry for that. But the most important part is this. There are really 3 main ways to make playful installations, in the sense of interactive installations integrating a sort of video game. One will be full analogy. Your controller, for example, will be a representation similar to what you see on screen. And then what you do on the controller usually will be applied to the object on screen the same way. Then you will have continuity. So let's say you play a game of grocery shopping and you have an actual shopping cart, but the cart is inside the screen, continuing in pixels. That's continuity. That's usually the sexiest way to embed digital in physical and physical in digital. And finally, discontinuity, when there is absolutely no relationship between the two, which can make stuff quite fun, actually. Like, let's say you play a game played with a TV remote on a microwave. What would be this game? What would be this experience? I'll move on and leave you on this question. So a few examples I wanted to show you about this. This is Keyboard Landscaper. I invite you to look at my website by the end of the talk to learn more about this game. One before our last point, environmental storytelling. How can we weave stories inside the environment? So environmental storytelling in video game is a technique of narrative design that consists in using the environment to tell the story. The best example of that is exploring ruins. You're an archaeologist exploring ruins. You discover stuff, but no one is telling you the story. You are discovering the story. So this is environmental storytelling. And in video games, obviously, it's used a lot. But in playful installations, not so much. However, escape games or escape rooms are slowly offering more and more consistent narrative and storytelling, so I'm hopeful for the future when it comes to that. But to give you just 2 really important points to keep in mind when making environmental storytelling in playful installation specifically is The first one is whatever you show, it will convey a mood, a tone. Here, what you have is one of our latest installation. It's called Le Sphinx, and it's a small immersive room, almost fully in the dark, and players play with this metallophone, a xylophone made of metal, on this cube. It's basically a puzzle game, but it's all made like you were talking with the cube. It was inspired a lot by the scene from Rencontre du troisième type? Encounter of the third kind, sorry. So, because of all these references, I was able to tell a story through this cube that is just abstract, and that is actually an egg, and you are a sort of god, that can create whatever creatures inside of it, but it's a whole spell to cast and stuff like this. So this is one example of weaving stories inside an installation. The second one is by using playful essentialization. I told you about it a bit earlier. It's a concept I made for my PhD, and it's, for me, the reduction of an activity to its most playful elements. So, for example, this game, Contre-Ciel, was inspired by me looking at clouds moving through the window, and I wondered, how playful is that? And how is that playful? Which are two separate questions. How playful is that? And how is that playful? And one thing leading to another, I realized that it was incredibly satisfying to have this godlike sensation of feeling like the clouds are actually moving on my music, in my headset. I was feeling like a god, and this godlike feeling, I wanted to give it to players, and this is how Contre-Ciel was made. Final point, interactive showmanship. So, in the realm of video games, in festivals and physical places, the players are not just participants. They are part of the show. They are the performers of a tool that you gave them that is the playful installation. It's one way to think about it, at least. And so we have to think about crafting an experience for the showmanship, for the spectators, to create gaming spectacle, if I can say, or playful spectacle. Now, it's not always possible. So one thing that I like to do is play a lot with webcams so people can show themselves and others can see them. But more importantly, print and record a lot of images inside what happens in the digital space, so I can make stuff based on that. So for example, here in this game GPU, player use this weird controller to move shaders on the screen, glitches, and a screenshot is taken when one level is achieved, finished, completed, and then players can find these images online. But other players or potential players will also see that and want to make their own. So there is a loop that goes beyond the gameplay loop of just the game. And one way to think about this, not just as a gadget element, which is cool. Everyone loves a picture of themselves at the end of a game, but one way to think about it beyond that is thinking about play as what it is, a creative act. Playing is creating in one way. Moving Mario on the screen is making Mario dance. It's a sort of performance. And you can use your game mechanics to go as far as create art. Here in Dead Pixels, we made this simple competitive game, but when players move, they leave a trail of their colors, and it creates graphic images that are then showed inside the exhibit, the festival, for everyone to see, and also online. And all these are created thanks to the game mechanics that is made with that creative act in mind. So to conclude, so this is a recap of what we've already said. So I will move on faster because I'm late by 8 seconds. I just want to finish by saying one thing. The hardest part for me was accepting to be playful while I was making playful experiences. It's okay to have fun, it's okay to be silly, and more importantly, it's really hard to fake it. It's hard to share joy in an installation when you are depressed. If you are depressed, make a depressing work, maybe, I don't know. But what I mean by that is, if you go for playfulness, align with it. And if you are not playful yourself, that's okay. That's therapy for you. So you use it as a therapeutical tool. Basically, embrace the magic in the world. Thanks a lot for your attention. It was a pleasure to speak to you.